All right, so we've got this Reddit thread, and it's from Realism.
Okay.
And the original poster asked this really, really big question. What's even the point of life if you just work it away? And it's something that, like, a lot of people are thinking about.
Yeah, it's a question that has been plaguing humans for centuries, like
What?
what's the meaning of it all?
What's the meaning of it all?
Yeah.
Especially if we're just, working, 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 working.
Especially if it feels like all we're doing is working. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna take a deep dive into this Reddit thread, see what people are saying.
Hmm.
There's a really interesting mix of like existential dread and um, practical advice.
Oh, yeah, and even some surprisingly hopeful perspectives in there.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. So let's just jump right in.
Mhm.
So right off the bat, you see a lot of people just resonating with this feeling of being stuck.
Right, like being trapped.
Like they're just, trading their time for a paycheck just to barely get by.
To just survive. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are a lot of comments about working for decades and decades and decades and then finally getting to retirement. But by then, their health is declining.
Hmm.
They don't have enough time or energy to like actually enjoy it.
Right, and so then what was it all for? You know?
Exactly. Like, what was the point?
Mm.
And then you see this other comment about like billionaires.
Oh, yeah, the billionaires dying with billions of dollars
But they never even got to use.
that they never even got to use. Like, it just goes to show that even the wealthiest people can't escape this feeling of like, is this all there is?
Right. And they bring up Steve Jobs.
Yeah, Steve Jobs died with like, what was it, $10 billion? Something like that.
$10 billion that he never got to use.
Unused wealth.
Yeah.
And it all went to his wife, I think.
Yeah. It's like, what's the point of accumulating all this wealth if you don't even get to experience it?
Exactly. It really makes you question the whole system.
And a lot of people in the thread are pointing fingers at capitalism.
Right. They see it as the root of the problem.
Right. Yeah, this endless pursuit of profit, the exploitation of labor, this lack of control that people feel over their own work,
And that all contributes to this sense of like, why bother?
this nihilism. Yeah. There's this one quote that really stood out to me. It said, slavery never left. It just evolved into economic slavery supplied with bread and circuses.
Ooh, that's a powerful one.
Right.
It's a pretty stark image.
But it really captures how a lot of people are feeling.
yeah, like they're stuck in a system that's rigged against them.
Yeah. And even if you wanted to like opt out of this whole system, it's so hard
It's almost impossible.
without facing some serious consequences.
Yeah, our basic needs are all tied to income.
Food, shelter, healthcare.
It's all connected.
Yeah. And there's another comment that says the reason slavery was abolished has always been because it's more productive to pay people minimum wage than it is to pay for their meals and housing.
Wow.
Like, we're not literally owned anymore, but are we really free?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's heavy stuff.
It is.
But even with all of this nihilism and frustration,
Mm-hmm.
there are some glimmers of hope in this thread.
Yeah, there are some people who have found ways to make it work.
Yeah, people who have found ways to find meaning and purpose,
Some people talked about leaving their soul-crushing jobs to pursue their passions.
even if it meant taking a financial hit.
Right, like they were willing to sacrifice some financial security for the sake of their own happiness and fulfillment.
It's a reminder that you do have choices,
You always have choices.
even within a system that can feel really restrictive.
You just have to be willing to look for them.
Yeah, and other people were talking about prioritizing experiences over material possessions.
Oh, yeah, like travel hobbies, spending time with loved ones.
Yeah, things that enrich your life outside of work.
Things that actually matter.
Yeah, and for some people, just that shift in perspective is enough.
Yeah. It can be really powerful to realize that work doesn't have to be everything.
And then there were those who found meaning in jobs that directly benefited others,
Yeah, like public service or nonprofit work.
making a difference in the world.
Yeah, there's something really fulfilling about knowing that your work is helping others.
Yeah, it gives you a sense of purpose.
Right, it's like you're contributing to something larger than yourself.
But what about those of us who are stuck in jobs that just feel meaningless?
Right, what can we do?
Is there anything we can do to make it more bearable?
Well, even in this really cynical Reddit thread, people were talking about the importance of mindset,
Really? Like what kind of stuff?
like connecting with your colleagues, focusing on the positive aspects of the job, practicing gratitude.
Okay.
It's not about pretending that everything is perfect,
Right.
but it's about finding those little things that can make your day a little bit better.
Yeah. And maybe even finding ways to make a difference within your existing role.
Right, like even if you don't love your job, you can still find ways to make it more meaningful.
So if you're listening to this and you're relating to this whole conversation, just know that you're not alone.
You are not alone.
This Reddit thread shows just how many people are wrestling with these same questions.
It's a universal struggle.
Yeah. And you know what? If this episode is resonating with you, it'll probably resonate with other people too. So hit that like button and share it with your friends.
Right, let's spread the word.
Let's keep this conversation going. And hey, while you're at it, subscribing to Shauna Palage on YouTube helps us reach even more people who might be struggling with these same questions.
It's all about building a community around these big ideas.
Exactly. So let's get back to that thread. One of the most common themes in those more hopeful responses was this idea of finding work you actually enjoy.
Right, like finding your passion.
But it's not always easy to figure out what you truly enjoy,
Yeah. No, it can be a really tough process.
especially if you've been stuck in a job you hate for a long time.
It can be hard to even remember what you used to be passionate about.
Yeah, it takes some serious soul searching.
And maybe even some experimentation.
And sometimes even a willingness to take risks.
Right, to step outside of your comfort zone.
Like that commenter who talked about leaving a well-paying corporate job to become a tattoo artist.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
They said it was the best decision they ever made.
Even though it meant less financial security in the short term?
It's a good reminder that sometimes you have to prioritize fulfillment over security.
Absolutely. And that choice might not be easy, but it can be incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the idea that, it really speaks to the idea that you don't have to be stuck. You know,
Yeah.
you can create a work life that feels aligned with your values and your passions.
And so like this other commenter mentioned, they were talking about the importance of finding a job that aligns with your values.
Mm.
Even if like the work itself isn't glamorous,
Oh, totally.
just knowing that you're contributing to something you believe in can make a huge difference.
Right. It's not just about finding a job you like. It's about finding a job that feels meaningful.
Meaningful, yeah.
And that meaning can come from different places. For some people, it might be about helping others.
Yeah.
For others, it might be about creating something beautiful or solving complex problems.
It's about finding what lights you up
Exactly.
and then finding a way to make a living doing it.
Right. And that might mean stepping outside of your comfort zone a little bit,
Yeah.
challenging your assumptions about what's possible.
Because let's be real, not everyone has the privilege or the resources to just up and quit their job and follow their dream.
That's true. It's a privilege to be able to even consider that.
Right.
And there are systemic factors that make those choices so much harder for a lot of people.
Yeah. It's a tough balance.
It is.
We need to empower individuals to make choices,
Yeah.
but we also need to address those systemic issues that make those choices so difficult.
It's not an either situation. It's both hand.
Both hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why these conversations are so important.
Exactly. We have to keep talking about these things.
If we don't question the status quo,
Yeah.
we just accept a reality that might not actually serve us.
Right. And that's what Voices of the Soul is all about.
It's about exploring these big questions.
And empowering you to find your own answers.
Yeah. So if you're out there and you're feeling trapped, unfulfilled, questioning the point of it all,
Mm-hmm.
you are not alone.
So many people feel the same way.
There are people in this very Reddit thread who are feeling the same things.
Exactly. And connecting with those people can be so powerful.
Yeah. And we encourage you to keep this conversation going. Share your thoughts in the comments, connect with us on social media.
Let's keep exploring these ideas together.
And hey, if this episode has gotten you thinking and feeling all the feels, hit that like button and share it.
Yes. Spread the love.
The more we talk about this stuff, the more likely we are to find solutions.
And create a world where work doesn't have to feel like a soul-crushing obligation.
It doesn't have to be.
No.
And that brings me to one of the ideas in the thread that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
It was all about reclaiming your time and energy,
Okay.
not letting work consume your entire life.
I like that.
This one commenter talked about working for 18 months
Mm-hmm.
and then taking a whole year off.
A whole year. Wow.
A whole year. What did they do with all that time?
Well, they lived frugally, spent time with family, pursued their hobbies, learned new skills,
Right.
and then they went back to work, earned some money, and repeated the cycle.
It's like built-in mini retirements.
Exactly. Instead of waiting until the very end.
Yeah. And it challenges this assumption that we have to work nonstop for 40 plus years before we can finally enjoy ourselves.
Right. Like, why wait?
Yeah. And there was this other commenter who was talking about being a teacher.
Oh, yeah.
And, they work for 180 days out of the year,
Mm-hmm.
and they use that other half to find meaning and enjoyment outside of the traditional work structure.
Right. Like there are different ways to structure your life and your career.
Yeah. Just take some creativity and planning.
But it is important to remember that not all jobs offer that kind of flexibility.
True. We have to acknowledge that not everyone has a job that allows them to take extended breaks or set their own hours.
And that's where those systemic changes come in. We need to create a system that supports people in finding more balance and fulfillment.
Regardless of their profession.
Absolutely. Now, going back to that thread, another big theme that emerged was this whole idea of like finding those little pockets of joy and meaning within your existing work. You know, even if you can't just like up and quit.
Yeah, because let's be real. Not everyone has that luxury, right?
No, definitely not. It's just not realistic for a lot of people.
So what do you do if you're kind of stuck?
Well, that's where mindset comes in. Remember all those comments about like connecting with your colleagues,
Oh, yeah.
finding the good parts of the job, practicing gratitude?
Okay, so like focusing on the positives.
Exactly. It's not about pretending that everything is perfect, but it's about shifting your perspective a little bit,
Right.
focusing on what you can control and just finding ways to make your day-to-day experience a little bit brighter.
I think it's also important to remember that, like, work is just one part of life.
Totally.
It doesn't have to define you.
You can have passions and interests outside of work that bring you joy and fulfillment.
Like those commenters who talked about prioritizing experiences over material possessions,
Yeah.
travel hobbies, spending time with loved ones.
It's about creating a life that feels rich and meaningful, even if your job isn't your dream job.
And you know what? Even if you're stuck in a job you don't love, it can still be a stepping stone to something better.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like a way to gain skills and experience
Right.
that you can eventually use to transition to something that you're more passionate about.
Exactly. It's about playing the long game,
Playing along.
keeping your eye on the prize and not letting the current situation like define your future.
So what does all of this mean for our listeners? Like, what can they take away from this deep dive into this Reddit thread?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that you're not alone in these feelings. So many people are struggling with the same questions about the value of work and how to find purpose and fulfillment in a system that can often feel really soul-crushing.
It's okay to question the status quo,
Yes.
to feel frustrated, to want more out of life.
Absolutely.
And don't be afraid to take action.
Take action, yeah.
Whether that's making small changes to improve your current work situation, or exploring different career paths, or just prioritizing your passions outside of work.
It's all about finding what works for you.
You have the power to create a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling. It might take some effort, some soul-searching, some risk-taking.
But it's worth it.
It's so worth it. And hey, if this episode has resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yes, please share them in the comments below.
Connect with us on social media. Let's keep this conversation going.
And before we wrap up, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Shauna Plage on YouTube for more deep dives into fascinating topics just like this one.
Thanks for joining us on Voices of the Soul. We'll see you next time.